That was the warning. Inanna spoke it herself before she went anyway. She was the queen of heaven in the oldest written mythology we know. The Sumerians pressed her name into wet clay tablets 4,000 years ago, and she chose to walk down into the kingdom of the dead, into the realm ruled by her own sister, Ereshkigal. Nobody knows exactly why. Power, perhaps. Grief. Something that couldn't be named. What we do know is that there were 7 gates between the living world and the dark one, and at each gate a guardian stripped her of something: her crown, her jewels, her robe, until she arrived at the throne of death with nothing left, not even her own name to protect her. Tonight, you will hear what it costs to go somewhere you were warned not to go, and what, if anything, waits on the other side of total surrender. Welcome to the story of Inanna's descent. Now lie back, breathe slowly, and let the ancient world take over. Two rivers caught the last of the light, the Tigris broad and dark, the Euphrates pale as hammered tin, threading south through the flat black earth of Sumer as the day released its heat. The reed beds cooled. Goats in distant pens fell quiet. Then, in the space between last sun and first dark, a single star appeared above the western horizon. Not the first. The first. Burning white and deliberate, it climbed the sky as though it had somewhere to be. Every shepherd who saw it knew she was watching. Inanna's star. The world below it was hers. Below, the star that bore her name still climbed. Up here, Inanna stood where the star could see her back. The crown sat on her head, hammered gold, flat and pointed, catching the last copper light. The lapis lazuli beads pressed cruel against her throat. The breastplate covered her chest, 8 pointed stars incised across the gold in rows. The royal robe hung from her shoulders, deep crimson, its hem grazing the rooftop stone. On her right hand, the thick gold ring. In her left, the measuring rod, heavy and cylindrical, its lapis surface warm from a day spent indoors. Uruk spread below her. Cook fires, grain stores, the smell of river mud and warm bread drifting up on the evening air. Everything ordered, everything hers. But her eyes moved south, past the last reed beds, past the desert's pale edge, down somehow, as though she could see through the earth itself to whatever waited beneath it. That night she did not sleep. 7 nights, the same vision, darkness below the earth, thick and pressurized as water at great depth, and somewhere inside it a throne. Not empty, waiting. She sat on the edge of her sleeping mat now, the oil lamp throwing a low amber circle across the cedar floor. The smell of the wick, burnt flax and tallow, was the only thing grounding her. Inanna pressed both palms flat against her breastplate and closed her eyes. She could not explain it, not to Ninshubur, not to herself. The great below did not ask her. It did not beckon or promise. It simply sounded low, repetitive, insistent, the way a temple drum does not invite a dancer so much as remove her choice entirely. She had to go. She opened her eyes. The lamp flame steadied. She had already decided. She found Ninshubur in the outer courtyard and brought her here to the inner one, where no one else would hear. The night air smelled of cooling limestone and the bruised green of the date palms overhead. Inanna stood close and spoke quietly. "If I have not returned in 3 days, go to Enlil. If Enlil will not come, go to Nanna. If Nanna turns away, go to Enki. Do not stop until one of them listens." Ninshubur held very still. Her face did not shift, not a flinch, not a question. But her hands found the hem of her tunic and gripped it, the knuckles pale in the torchlight. "I will go to all 3, she said. Inanna looked at her for a long moment. She felt the warmth of Ninshubur's presence and the fear of what she was asking her to carry. Both at once, unresolved, she turned toward the gate. The gate closed behind Inanna with a sound like a hand pressed flat against stone. Ninshubur did not move. The date palms had gone still. The torches in the far corridor were the only sound, a low, uneven breath of flame. The limestone beneath her feet held the day's heat in it still, faint warmth rising through her soles. 3 days. She counted them silently, shaping each one like a weight she was agreeing to carry. 1, 2, 3. Then she would go, not before. Three days later, before the city had fully woken, Inanna stood alone in the dressing chamber. The polished bronze mirrors held her in amber pieces, an arm here, a jaw there. She did not look at them yet. She reached for the crown of the step first. Cold in her hands, the hammered gold heavier than it had any right to be for something so flat. She pressed it to the crown of her head. "Sovereignty," she said quietly. "Not to anyone." The lapis lazuli measuring rod next, the cool stone smooth against her palm, its cuneiform marks pressing faint ridges into her fingers as she gripped it. Justice. She fastened the lapis lazuli beads at her throat. lifted the breastplate, drew on the robe. Each name she spoke landed in the room and stayed there. By the time she slipped the golden ring onto her right hand, her reflection in the nearest mirror was complete. She did not look like a woman preparing to die. She looked like a god who had not yet understood that she might. She walked out through the city gate as the first light reached the mud brick walls, warm on her back, cold still on her face. Uruk did not call after her. A water seller stood at the road's edge with his clay jars. He lowered his eyes. A group of weavers heading to the river stepped aside without speaking. Even a child, barely old enough to walk, went still in her mother's arms. Inanna moved through their silence like a boat through reeds, parting it, leaving it closed behind her. The road south became scrubland, became flat, pale dust. The city walls shrank at her back. The desert air tasted of dried salt grass and something older, the chalky mineral scent of ground that had never been watered. She did not look back. The 7 powers were with her. That would have to be enough. The desert floor cracked and dropped without warning. 2 slabs of gray limestone shouldering apart, exhaling cold air that smelled of wet chalk and something mineral and shut in, like the inside of a sealed jar. Inanna stopped. She pressed her right palm flat against the stone. The cold moved up through her hand, into her wrist, along the bone of her forearm. Not the cool of shade, something deeper, something that had never been warm. The gap between the stones was just wide enough. She stood there long enough to feel her courage test itself. It held, not easily, not without the small, tight sensation across her chest that she recognized as fear sitting alongside intention. Both real, neither winning. She stepped through. Beyond the gap, the stone passage ran straight and low for 30 paces before ending at a door. Not a gap, not a crack, a door. Black basalt, twice the height of a man, sealed at its edges with 4 bolts of lapis lazuli that caught no light and gave none back, only absorbed it, dense and absolute as deep water. Inanna raised her fist and struck. The sound was enormous. It rang through the stone floor, up through the soles of her feet, rattled the lapis lazuli beads at her throat. She struck again and again. 3 blows that did not ask, they demanded. "Open your gate," she said, and her voice filled the passage completely. "I have come for the funeral rites of Gugalana, Bull of Heaven, husband of the great queen. Open. I have the right of mourning. Let me in." The lie was enormous. She had not come to mourn. Silence settled back around the words like water closing over a stone. She waited, hands still raised, knuckles ringing. Then the door moved. Not open, barely. A finger's width of darkness. Then two. Then a strip of black so complete it seemed to lean forward into the passage. One eye appeared in the gap. Dark, still. The other was milky white and saw nothing, or saw everything. It was impossible to say which was worse. Nettie did not speak immediately. He studied her the way old stone studies weather, without hurry, without feeling, without any particular outcome in mind. Then, at last, "Who are you, and why have you come?" Inanna told him. The morning rites, Gugalana, all of it. Nettie's dark eye moved across her crown, her beads, her breastplate. He was counting, she realized. Cataloging. "Wait here," he said. The door did not close. It held its crack. His eye disappeared into the dark behind it, and his footsteps moved away, slow, even, unhurried, until the passage held only the cold and her own breathing. Nettie's footsteps carried him down through 7 passages, each one colder than the last, until he reached the throne room and stopped at its threshold. Ereshkigal sat with both hands flat on the armrests, still as carved basalt. She heard him out. When he finished, she did not speak. She lifted her right hand and brought it down hard against her thigh, a single flat sound that rang off the stone walls and died. Then her teeth found her lower lip and held it. Her face did not show anger. What it showed was harder to name, the look of a woman hearing news she has always known was coming and has still not decided whether to be glad of it or afraid. She breathed out slowly through her nose. "Bring her through," she said at last. "Open all 7 gates. Let each gate be opened just wide enough." Nettie stood at the threshold, waiting. Ereshkigal looked at him steadily. Her hands had not moved from her thighs. "At each gate," she said, "the laws of the underworld will be observed. What she carries will be taken. Her crown, her beads, her breastplate, each ring, each robe, each rod she has brought with her, one at every gate." She paused. "Do not explain. Do not apologize. If she asks why, tell her only the laws of the underworld are perfect. They do not bend for the Queen of Heaven." Nettie did not ask what would remain of her at the end. He already knew. Everyone who reached this room knew. Nettie returned to the first gate and opened it. The door ground back on stone, a low grating sound that pressed into the chest, and Inanna stepped through the narrow passage, her shoulders nearly grazing both walls. The cold here had weight to it, the kind that settles into the back of the jaw. Nettie's hand rose and lifted the Shugara crown from her head. Clean, unhurried. Inanna stopped. "What is this?" she said. "Why do you take the crown of the steppe from me?" Nettie held it at his side, the hammered gold flat and bright, even in that lightless place, its upward points catching nothing. "Be silent, Inanna." His voice carried no apology and no cruelty. The laws of the underworld are perfect. They must not be questioned. She stood without it. The top of her head was cold where it had rested. She walked forward. Behind her, the gate closed. The gate behind her had stopped. No echo, no reverberation, just the absence of the sound it had made, and the dark ahead. Inanna raised her hand and pressed her fingertips to the crown of her head. The skin there was cold, a hand's width of cold, where hammered gold had rested since before dawn. She had known, in the temple, in the courtyard, on the road, known the way a person knows a thing they have not yet touched. Now she had touched it. The crown was gone. She was still walking, and no one in this passageway knew her name. The second gate was narrower. Inanna felt it in her shoulders before she saw it. Stone walls within arm's reach on either side, the cold deeper here, settled into her knuckles and the backs of her hands. Nettie was waiting. He held out his palm, said nothing. Inanna looked down at the lapis lazuli rod in her hands, the deep blue of it, the slight heft of it, the gold end caps dulled by the dark. She had carried it so long that setting it across his palm felt like losing a limb she had forgotten she had. "Why is this taken from me?" she asked. "Quiet, Inanna," Nettie said. "The ways of the underworld are perfect." The rod left her hands. She stood for a moment with her palms open, feeling the width of the passage, too close, or perhaps exactly right, with no way now to know which. The third gate was lower still. Inanna had to angle her chin down to pass beneath the arch, stone grazing the crown of her hair. Nettie stepped from the wall as though he had always been part of it. He reached for her throat. The lapis lazuli beads, deep blue against her skin, worn since before she could remember wearing them, came away with a faint clicking sound as the gold wire cleared the clasp. They pooled in his palm, small, heavier than they looked. "Why is this taken from me?" she asked. "Quiet, Inanna. The ways of the underworld are perfect." She stood very still. The place at the base of her throat where the beads had rested felt open now, not wounded, but empty the way a hearth feels empty when the fire has been banked and the warmth is only a memory held in the stones. Below the third gate, the passage leveled out. Inanna counted her steps without meaning to, an old habit, the kind the body keeps when the mind has gone quiet. Nettie was waiting at the fourth gate before she reached it. He did not speak. He simply placed both palms flat against her chest and worked the breastplate free, its 4 leather ties releasing one by one with a dry, snapping sound. The gold was warm from her skin. It should not have been heavy. It was. She felt the cold of the passage air reach her sternum for the first time. "Why is this taken from me?" "Quiet, Inanna. The ways of the underworld are perfect." He turned away, and she stood there, neither above nor below, the midpoint of the descent exact beneath her feet. The breastplate gone, the cold pressing in where nothing now stood between her and whatever came next. She did not move for a long time. The cold settled against her sternum, and she let it. 4 things taken. 3 gates still ahead. Nettie's footsteps had long since faded, and the passage held only the faint sound of her own breath and the low, almost inaudible hum of the stone itself. The pull that had brought her this far, the dream, the voice, the weight in her chest that had no name, she noticed it was gone. Only her own will remained. She looked down the passage toward the 5th gate, invisible in the dark. Whatever Ereshkigal held below was not going to release her by staying unknown. It had already ruled her from the dark for too long. Inanna took 1 step forward, then another, not compelled, not dreaming, choosing. The 5th gate was the narrowest yet. Stone walls close enough that Inanna's shoulders nearly grazed both sides as she walked through. Nettie was waiting. He said nothing. He reached for her right hand, took it in both of his, and with a slow, deliberate pressure, worked the gold ring from her finger. It came free. Inanna looked at her hand. The band had sat there so long, the skin beneath it was faintly paler than the rest. She turned her fingers slowly, opened them, closed them. Her hand felt weightless, not free, but emptied, as though something that had quietly held her palm in shape was simply gone. "The ring," Nettie said, "is the custom of the great below." Inanna said nothing. She made a fist, released it, and walked on. The sixth gate was wet. Water seeped through the stone ceiling in slow threads, dropping onto Inanna's bare shoulders and running cold down her back. Nettie reached for the lapis lazuli necklace, the deep blue beads and their small gold spacers, long enough to hang to her mid-chest. His broad fingers worked the clasp without fumbling. Professional, practiced. The necklace pooled into his palm. He did not look away immediately. That was the thing. He looked at her, at what remained of her, and something crossed his face that had no place on a gatekeeper's face. His good dark eye held it for only a moment before he shut it down. Pity, not contempt, not ceremony. Pity. Inanna felt it land harder than any taking. The necklace, he said, voice level again, is the custom of the great below. She did not answer. Cold water tracked down her spine. One gate remained. The seventh gate was the last. Stone walls so close that Inanna could feel the cold radiating from both at once. Nettie reached for the royal robe, crimson linen and wool, the gold-embroidered collar, the wide sleeves. He took hold of the fabric at her shoulders and drew it back and down without a word, without ceremony. The weight of it left her arms. She stood without it, no crown, no rod, no beads, no breastplate, no ring, no necklace. Now no robe. Nothing on her skin but the cold air of the great below. The robe, Nettie said, is the custom of the great below. She walked through. The gate sealed behind her, a deep, grinding closure of stone meeting stone that pushed a current of air across the back of her bare neck. Then nothing. No passage left, no threshold to face, only the throne room ahead and whatever waited inside it. Beyond the threshold, she stopped. The antechamber held nothing, no torch, no door bar, no waiting figure. Only black stone underfoot and the faint phosphorescent cold of the walls pressing a dim green-blue light that was barely light at all. She stood in it. No crown, no rod, no ring, no beads, no breastplate, no robe. The cold reached her shoulders, her sternum, the soles of her feet against the stone. She had worn those objects since she could remember herself. Ruling, measuring, deciding. The weight of gold on her brow, the press of linen at her arms, all of it gone. What remained was this: breath, bone. the particular way her weight settled into her left foot before her right, the rhythm of her own pulse at her throat. She had expected grief. Instead, something colder arrived, a clarity sharp enough to sting, because standing here, stripped of every name the world above had ever called her, she met for the first time the thing that had always been underneath. Not the goddess, not the queen, just this. Whatever this was, the throne room door stood before her, sealed and waiting. She did not reach the door. Before her hand could rise, they came, not through any opening, but out of the walls themselves, the way a shape emerges when you have stared at stone long enough. 7 figures, bald, gray-wrapped, moving with the unhurried certainty of something that has never once been refused. The Inanna. They formed a half-ring around her, silent, and turned their sunken eyes toward her face. Inanna had been looked at all her life, admired, feared, petitioned. This was not that. This was weight. Each gaze pressed against her chest like a flat stone, and beneath it she felt something loosen that she had not known was held tight. Her breath came short. She did not move, but her hands, bare, ringless, empty, closed against her thighs. The judges did not speak. They simply watched and waited, and in their waiting was a verdict already forming. Then one of them spoke. The voice was neither loud nor cruel. It was the kind of voice that names a fact, the way a stonemason names a crack in a foundation, without anger, without pleasure. You came where you were not called. You walked into the land of the dead, wearing the living world like a garment. This is not permitted. The others did not echo it. They did not need to. 7 gazes held her, and the verdict settled onto her bare shoulders. Real weight, the kind that bends the knees. Inanna opened her mouth. She closed it. Every argument she had carried down through 7 gates, her right, her power, her name, had been stripped from her along with everything else. What remained was a woman standing with nothing to say. The Inanna waited. They had no urgency. They had only truth, and truth, she understood now, did not require her agreement. Beyond the Inanna, past the sealed door, Ereshkigal sat. Her throne was carved from the black stone of the deep earth, not shaped by tools but worn into its form by centuries of the same weight settling into it. She did not lean back. She did not rest her hands on its arms. She sat forward, elbows on her knees, chin lowered, as a woman sits when she has been tired for a very long time and has stopped pretending otherwise. Her robe was the color of wet clay in a deep well. Her hair lay unbound across her shoulders. She was not waiting for Inanna with hunger or with anger. She was simply there as she had always been, as she would always be, queen of every grief that had ever been buried, ruler of a kingdom whose subjects arrived unwilling and stayed forever. No one came here to visit. No one came to see her. Until now. Inanna walked through the sealed door. Ereshkigal did not rise. She watched her sister cross the black stone floor. Bare feet, bare shoulders, bare hands, and said nothing until Inanna stopped 4 paces. Neither spoke at once. Ereshkigal's face did not hold triumph. Inanna's did not hold fear. What passed between them in that moment was something neither had prepared for. Recognition. The same jaw, the same set of the brow, the same stillness worn like armor. Inanna, who had ruled everything bright and ascending, looked at the face of everything buried and enduring, and saw herself looking back. Ereshkigal's hands tightened on her knees. One small, involuntary press of the fingers against bone. "Sister," Ereshkigal said finally. The word came out low and careful, as a person handles a thing they have not touched in a very long time. Inanna said nothing, but she did not look away. The silence held for one breath more. Then Ereshkigal rose. She did not rise quickly. She unfolded from the throne the way stone shifts when the earth beneath it moves. Slow, inevitable, too large to stop once begun. Her unbound hair fell forward over her shoulders. Her bare feet met the cold floor. She fixed her eyes on Inanna. The eye of death is not a look of hatred. It carries no heat. It is simply the gaze of the one thing that ends all other things, patient, complete, requiring nothing from its object except stillness. Inanna had no crown to deflect it, no breastplate, no rod, no ring, no robe, nothing between her skin and what her sister's eyes contained. She felt it enter her like cold water filling a cracked vessel. Her knees met the black stone floor, then her hands. Then she lay still, and the throne room, which had been silent before, became something else entirely, the silence of a sound that has finished. Ereshkigal lifted Inanna by the wrist, one hand, no effort, and hung her on the hook. The iron was old, dark rust red, curved the length of a palm, driven into the black stone wall at shoulder height. It held her the way a nail holds a coat, without ceremony, without acknowledgement, without any particular interest in what it carried. Inanna hung still. Her head fell forward. The weight of her settled into the hook's curve with a soft final sound, the small creak of iron taking a load it had held before. Ereshkigal did not look back. She returned to her throne, sat, and placed both hands flat on the armrests. The phosphorescent glow of the walls resumed its cold, even pulse. The frost on the floor did not melt. The dark above did not shift. The underworld had received her, and now it simply continued. While Inanna hung still in the dark below, the world above her did not mourn. It simply went flat. The barley stood in the fields, green and full-headed, and did not ripen. Ewes stood at the fence and would not let the rams near. In Uruk, a young man reached for his wife's hand at dinner, and then did not, for no reason he could name. A child set down a honeycomb and walked away without tasting it. 3 days, 3 nights. The tigress ran. The sun crossed. Nothing underneath it quickened. On the 3rd morning, Ninshubur tore her robe at the collar. One sharp pull, the linen parting with a sound like a slap. She had counted every hour of those 3 days. She had counted and waited and counted again, and now the waiting was done. She struck the small cedar drum once, twice, the wet thud carrying through the pale streets of Nippur before a single cook fire had been lit. People in doorways watched her pass, a lean woman moving fast, bare feet on cold stone, torn cloth hanging from one shoulder, copper armband catching the first gray light. First Enlil, then Nana, then Enki, whoever would listen, whoever would help. She did not know which god would answer. She only knew she was already running. Enlil would not hear her. Nana turned her face away. Both gods gave the same answer dressed in different words. Inanna had known the laws, had walked in willingly, and the great below did not release what it received. So Ninshubur ran south to Eridu. Enki's temple floor was wet, groundwater seeping up between the limestone flags, cold against her bare soles. The god of wisdom sat cross-legged beside a low clay basin, fingers already dark with the silt he had been turning between his hands. He looked up when Ninshubur spoke Inanna's name. He did not interrupt. He let her say all of it. The 3 days, the silence, the hook. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he pressed his thumb into the wet silt and drew it out, studying the gray under his nail. "I will do something," he said, not loudly. The way a man states a fact he has already decided. Enki drew his thumbnail along the crease between his other fingers and collected what came free. Gray-black grime, river silt dried to powder, the ordinary residue of a morning's thinking. He pressed it together between his palms. He worked without speaking. 2 shapes emerged, small enough to rest on one thumb, featureless, soft as unbaked clay, still holding the warmth of his hands. Neither one looked like anything the underworld's laws were written to notice. That was the point. Into the first he breathed across its open mouth, one slow breath, the kind that carried water the way river air does before rain. Into the second he pressed a grain of barley from the floor beside the clay basin, pushing it gently through the chest with one finger. "Find the queen on the hook," he said to them very quietly. "Give her what you carry. Nothing more is needed." He set them down, and they were gone. Down through the cracks between the flags, into the dark beneath Eridu, moving toward the great below. They came up through the floor, through a hairline crack in the black stone, and found Ereshkigal not on her throne, but crouched beside it, her bare feet flat on the cold floor, her unbound hair fallen forward across her knees. She was moaning, not weeping, something older and less controlled than weeping. A sound that came from the chest, low and rhythmic, like a body trying to expel something too large to move. The 2 small creatures settled near her on the floor. No announcement, no outstretched hand. They simply sat. Ereshkigal's moan continued. Then, slowly, it changed, not stopping, but shifting, the way a sound shifts when someone realizes they are heard. She lifted her face. Her eyes, red-rimmed and wet, moved to the 2 small shapes beside her. Neither one offered anything yet. They only stayed. She lowered her head again, but the sound she made now was quieter. Then Ereshkigal moaned again, "My inside." And one of the creatures said, "Yes, your inside." She stilled. "My outside," she said. "Your outside," said the other. The word came back without adjustment, without comfort offered, without the soft correction that turns grief into something more bearable and therefore less true. "My body," she said, and her voice cracked on it, cracked the way old stone cracks along a line that has always been there. Your body, Ereshkigal, sat with that for a long moment, the frost-cold air of her throne room unmoving, the phosphorescent walls casting no warmth. Then something in her shoulders released, not collapsed, but released, the way a fist opens after a long time closed. She did not weep. She breathed. In all the ages of her rule over the dead, no one had ever given her this particular thing. Not power, not pity. Only the sound of her own grief returned to her whole and unashamed. From that softened stillness, Ereshkigal turned her face toward the two small creatures. Her voice, when it came, was different, lower without its ruling edge. "Whatever you wish," she said. "A river of water, fields of grain. Ask it." The creatures looked at each other, then up at the hook. "Only her," one said. "The body on the hook." Ereshkigal was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded, once, the way a door closes. One creature reached up and lifted Inanna down, the body cold and rigid, dry as salt-cured leather against its small clay hands. The other unstoppered the vial Enki had given them and pressed the water of life to her lips. The food of life followed. Inanna breathed. A single breath first, the chest rising with a wet, reluctant pull. Then another. Her eyes opened in the dark, unfocused, moving slowly across the phosphorescent walls as though she were reading words in a language she had nearly forgotten. Not awake, not dreaming. Somewhere between the two, heavy with the gravity of wherever she had been. Strength returned slowly, first to her hands, then her legs. Inanna rose from the floor of the throne room, unsteady but upright. She turned toward the gates. "No one leaves." Ereshkigal's voice carried no anger. It was simply a fact, stated from across the dark chamber, the same way stone is cold. "The law is older than either of us," Ereshkigal continued. "You may go above, but the gala will follow at your heels, and they will not return empty-handed. Someone must take your place. Someone living, breathing, warm." She paused. "That is the condition. There is no other." Inanna stood at the threshold of the seventh gate, the phosphorescent walls casting cold light across her bare skin. She did not speak, but she heard the sound behind her, already gathering in the dark, the soft, wet movement of the gala beginning to form from the shadows. They would follow her all the way to the surface, So Inanna began to climb. Nettie was already there at the seventh gate, holding the royal robe. He draped it across her shoulders without ceremony, the wool heavier than she remembered, the crimson dark in the cold light. She pulled it closed and walked on. At each gate above, he was waiting. The lapis lazuli necklace, cool against her throat, the ring, thick and plain on her finger, the breastplate, its hammered weight settling across her chest, the beads, the rod, and finally, at the first gate where the faintest gray warmth had begun to soften the stone, the crown. Nettie placed it on her head with both hands. It sat exactly as it always had, but it did not feel the same. Each piece had come back to her whole, unchanged. She was the one who had changed. The crown's weight pressed into her skull not as ornament, but as obligation. The rod in her hand meant something heavier now. Not authority claimed, but authority survived. She did not linger. Behind her, just audible, the gala followed. The mouth of the underworld released her without ceremony. One step on stone, the next on cold desert sand. She stood still. The air tasted of dry clay and crushed time, worn still from the day, and it moved across her face the way nothing below ever had. Above her, the first stars were coming through, not arriving exactly, but becoming visible, the way things that have always been present make themselves known. One star burned brighter than the others. Hers. She turned her face toward it. The crown pressed its familiar weight into her skull. The rod was solid in her hand. Every piece of herself had been returned. But she had been on that hook. She had hung empty in the dark, and the world had continued. And now she was back, and the world had continued again. Both things were true. She breathed in the time-scented air and did not try to name what she understood. Her body already knew it. She had gone down into the place where all things end, and she had come back wearing the same gold with the same name, beneath the same star. None of that was the same as before. Behind her, at the edge of her hearing, the gala waited in their silence. She would deal with that debt, but not yet. For now she stood in the last of the desert light, the evening stars steady above her, and she let the warm air move across her face, and she was fully, strangely, and for the first time, home.